friends, and welcome back to episode number 4 of our Victorian Autumn inspired journal that we're making here. Make sure before we get started today that you hit that subscribe button down below, like this video, and turn on your notifications bell so you can follow along with the whole process of this video and be notified whenever I post a new video. All right, so let's get started with what we're working on today. Today we are going to be sewing in the signatures that I put together into the actual journal book cover here. I'm going to show you the process that I'm going to use for this specific journal. There's lots of ways to do this, but this is the one that I picked to do only because I think it's going to be the easiest for this specific one. I apologize in advance for my raspy voice. I've been trying to get rid of a head cold for the past week and a half, and it's just hanging on, and I have been living on warm water with tea and honey and just trying to soothe my voice. Let's go over really quickly the signatures that I put together that I want to bind in this specific journal. In the previous videos, we went through the steps on making the signatures, and I went ahead and finished off the pages that I want in all 3 of my signatures. As you can see, this was the first one, this was the second one, and here is the third one. Now, they're all very similar in layout and design, but they have different features, they have different functions, which we'll go through more in depth on the actual pages once these signatures are bound into the book. What I am using is kind of a lightweight cardboard, a little bit heavier than a cardstock. I'm actually using a pancake and batter mix box for this specific binding. And I want to make sure I have a piece. Let me get my template out here. I want to make sure I have a piece that is big enough to fit this template lengthwise, which this looks good right about here. So I'm just going to cut out, so I don't have all this bulky cardboard hanging around here. I'm just going to cut out a smaller piece of cardboard, and then we can go ahead and measure it down. Cereal boxes and boxes like this work really good for making tags, for making like inserts and pockets and stuff in journals. So definitely save them. I save a few boxes here and there just so I have the cardboard. So we need the length to be the same as our length of our template right here. And then our width, we're gonna take our journal over here, is gonna be the width of the spine. So let's open our journal right up, kind of flatten it out here so we can measure this. And I want to measure from where the crease is to where the other crease is. So I am looking at just under 2 inches, like slightly under 2 inches in my width. So let's go back here. Let's mark out just slightly under 2 inches. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect. It's better that it's shorter or narrower rather than wider. You don't want a wider piece because then it will be hard for your book to open and close. And I'm going to try to cut this with my cutter. If my cutter doesn't work on this, then I will use my scissors, but I think the cutter might work just so that I have a nice smooth edge. Yeah, that works fine. Okay, so now I have a piece like this. Okay, so here is going to be the base of my spine where we're going to actually attach our signatures to. So now we have to make a template so that we know what we need to do from here. So now what I'm doing is I'm just going to make a paper template. This is just some copy paper, and it is roughly the same length. It's a little bit longer than what I have here. So I'm just going to cut this out. This is going to be just a template. And let me just make sure I have the same. Okay, just cut this little piece off on the end. Just want it to be as accurate as possible. So I have my template cut out to the exact same size as my cardboard spine. And now there's a couple ways that you can go about doing this. You can measure it out using a ruler and a pencil, or you can fold it. Sometimes it's a little bit more accurate and it saves the hassle of measuring. So I'm folding my paper in half. That's going to give me my center point right here. And then I'm going to fold each one of these halves to the center point. And then we're going to fold the other side in as well. So these are this folding is basically just giving us our guidelines where we're going to punch our holes. Okay, so now we have our guidelines where you can see here. We have our middle and then our two outer edge lines. We're now going to fold our entire paper in half, and that's going to give us our center point. All right, so we're folding it in half like that, and now we have our center point, which I'm just going to make a little mark. So that's our exact center, I don't know if you can see right there. Now I'm also going to make a mark, the same little mark on all three lines, just like that. So that is my 3 center points for each one of my signatures, okay? So now because we're doing a 5-hole signature, and the reason why I'm doing a 5-hole rather than a 3 is I like how the 5, I feel like it's a little bit sturdier. If I wasn't doing so thick of a journal, I would definitely do a 3-hole version, but we're gonna do a 5-hole version for this one. Okay, so now I want to, it doesn't really matter where you make your holes top and bottom, as long as you have enough space in between where you make your hole and the top of your spine here, okay? Because you don't want it right next to the edge, because then it's not gonna hold. So I'm actually gonna measure in probably about a 1/2 inch and make a little mark. Actually, we'll do it on the center line. So here is where my top hole is gonna be, and we'll do the same thing on all 3 lines. Measure in about a 1/2 inch. And down here, we'll measure about a 1/2 inch. Okay, so now you can see I have 3 holes at my very end, and we're gonna do the same thing on the other end. Now, like I said, this part really doesn't have to be, you don't have to do any specific length that you want. I just picked a 1/2 inch because a 1/2 inch is a good amount of paper on top of my top stitch, so that way my stitches aren't pulling out through the cardboard. Okay, so wherever you made your holes on the edges, now we want to find the middle point between here and here. Now, if you don't want to get your calculator out and do all of that measuring, there's another way that you can do it, and that would be to take your ruler or fold your paper down on the line where your top dots were, like that, and then take this and fold this right into the middle. And that will also give you your center point between here and here, between the center and there. So then you can use those guides, folded guidelines, to just make your little marks like that, okay? So that's probably the easiest way to do it. Okay, so now once you've done both sides, you should have a template that looks something like this. We're gonna start punching our holes into our cardstock here. Now, it doesn't really matter which side you use. I'm actually gonna use, this side is gonna be the side that I'm gonna glue down into my journal. So we'll use this side right here as our top. And what I like to do is I like to line my paper up, and either using clips or paper clips, or I'm just gonna put some paper clips on here and hold this template in place with paper clips so it's not moving around a whole lot. Just make sure it's on there nice and sturdy. I'm going to take an awl right here, and I'm also going to take a little piece. You can use it like a piece of foam. I just took a little piece of cardboard, corrugated cardboard, and folded it up like this, and I used that to kind of punch my holes. So now we're just going to use our awl and punch our holes right through that cardboard backing that we're going to use. Just like that. See, we just punched our holes all the way through, and we're going to do that all the way down. Now you can buy little bookmaking kits that include the awl. It includes a needle and your, I think they use like waxed thread in the bookmaking kits, but I will link one of those below. They're very inexpensive. You can get them right on Amazon for like $7 to $10 for just a basic kit. Okay, so now I have my holes punched into my back plate. We can go ahead and take off our template. And here's our back plate that we're going to sew our journal signatures into. So I lost a whole section of this video, and I realized it as I was editing. So I'm going back to show you what we do with our template to our actual signature pages to get them ready for sewing into the plate that we just made. I made up a sample signature pages right here, and we'll use this as a guide to show you how I went and got that done. Okay, so here's your signatures. We'll pretend that this is multiple pages. I only used a couple sheets of paper just so that I wasn't wasting a whole bunch, but I folded it in half and I measured it to make sure it was the same dimensions as the pages that we were using. Now we want to punch our pages. So we want to open them up to our center page right here. And as you know from previous, when you're making a signature, you're using full-size sheets, and you're basically folding them in half, and then each half is considered one page. So we're opening up to our very center of our signature, and we're going to use our template, and right along that center crease, we're going to line up our template just like that. And what I do is I use clips to hold it in place, top and bottom. You could use paper clips, whatever. I just use clips just to hold it in place while I'm going ahead and punching my holes. Now, you can do it a couple different ways. You can make a mark first. So just take a little pencil and make a mark on your actual page, so that way you don't have to worry about punching through the template. You can take the template off and then all your marks are there, so you can just go ahead and punch through. Or if you have like a decorative page, or you have pages where you don't really want to, you can't see the mark well, then just keep the template right on and don't worry about the mark, and then just use your awl to punch through these holes directly. So here's my awl. I always start with the center, and basically you're just punching through the center and then working your way up and down your signature pages, just like this. Now, mind you, again, this is pretty easy for me because it's only 2 pages. If you have more pages, it's going to be thicker. You kind of have to work at it. What I like to do is I like to lift my pages up. Once I've actually created a hole, I like to push my hole all the way through to open it up, you know, so that there's a good hole, and do that all the way on all of the holes. Just make sure you're not punching don't put your hand behind it when you're pushing it. Just use your fingers as kind of a guide, like that. Okay, and then once your holes are all punched, Then you're ready to start stitching in your pages to your spine of your or your back plate. All right, so now that we have our template all done and ready, and we have the holes punched and everything and ready to go, I am going to wrap this backing with some fabric, so that way you don't see it and that it's covered up. And I just picked the same fabric that I used on the outside cover, and we're gonna do just like we did there. We're gonna use some Mod Podge. And I still haven't gotten any new Mod Podge yet. I'm literally milking what I have left along here. Okay, so I'm just gonna go on the back side. I'm gonna coat my back side of my spine here with some Mod Podge. Once you have a good coating, I'm gonna just flip it around and lay it right down into that fabric. Now I cut a piece that was, I don't know, about 1.5 inches or so wider all the way around. Just smooth it out a little bit. You're gonna see the holes from the punched piece underneath, but that's okay because you're gonna have to punch right through this fabric as well. So I'm gonna trim my ends up just a little bit because I want to fold my ends over, but I don't want this long of a flap. I want to just have a small piece to fold over, just enough to cover the ends. I don't want to cover my holes here. So I'm just gonna trim off and leave about 1/2 inch. About like that. So that way when I fold this over, you can still see the holes right here. And we'll go ahead and let that dry just for a little bit. So now we're gonna just punch our holes through our fabric. They're already in our cardboard piece here, and you can kind of see them on the other side where the fabric was put. So I'm just gonna use those little guides. Like that. And then just make sure they go all the way through. Okay, so I have all my holes punched through my fabric. Should be pretty much dry here by now. And so now we're going to start binding our signatures into this little spine. So to actually go ahead and sew in our signatures, I'm going to use some of this pink string. I think this is, I don't know exactly what it's called. Crochet thread maybe? I think this is crochet thread right here, but it's a little thicker than actual thread, but it's not as thick as yarn. So you can use pretty much whatever you have in this consistency. You could even use twine, as long as it's a thin twine, or cording, or you could even use baker's twine, something like that, that might work. Okay, so I am going to use some of this, and for measurement's sake, I'm not going to measure. I always kind of tend to do about 3 to 4 times the width of the book that I'm sewing in, or the signature that I'm sewing in. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and maybe a little extra. That should be plenty. I will clip it off. And then I will take my needle wherever that went. So I'm just using a little crochet needle, something that has a big enough eye to fit the thread that you're using. I like this one because it's big and it's easy to thread. All right, so then I'm gonna leave about 5 inches, and I'm not tying any knots in the bottom. Okay, now, there's a couple ways that you can do this, and it depends on how you're binding your journal together. Now, this way that we're doing it, I am actually going to start on the inside. Whichever spot that you start is the spot that you're going to end up. So if you start in the center, you're going to end in the center, and you'll have to tie a knot, and you'll have a little piece of string in the center, which I kind of like because you can hang little charms off of it. You can use it for other things. If you start on the back, you're going to end on the back, and that will be more hidden. So I'm going to start on the center, and you always start with your very center hole here. So I'm going to go in through my center hole. Okay, I'm going to pull my thread almost all the way. I'm going to leave about a page width out. So there's about my page width out, and that's just that when I finish, I can use that to tie off. And I'm going to take this, and just to keep it out of the way, I'm going to kind of wrap it around and clip it onto my book here, just so that it's out of the way. Okay, then we're going to be doing a figure 8 kind of stitch. So this is going to be our first signature. So we want to start on the very left hand side of our little back plate, and we're going to go in to the center from the front. Now you want to go in on your fabric side, because this is the side that's going to be closest to your signature. This is going to be the side that's going to get glued down into your book. So we're going to go in the center of your back plate here. Oh, I'm stuck. In the center of your back plate. Okay. And then again, we're going to do figure 8. So we're going to go down into the next one on the same line. Now it's going to be a little flimsy until this gets tied in tighter, but that's okay. And then we're going to go down in through our second hole of our signature and back out through the bottom. Okay. So you can see there it is there, and it's coming back out here. And then, so we came out here, we're gonna go back in and in through the hole on our back plate. And pull it nice and tight. And we're gonna make a figure 8, and we're gonna go back down in through this one. And back down through the hole. Okay, so there's that one. So we're coming out here. Gonna go back down through the middle. And we're gonna do our second figure 8 up on the top side. So now we're gonna go in through the, in through there, out through the top. Back in, and this is where we're going to end up. Okay, so this is where we're going to start to tie it off. So we can take our needle off, we can take our other piece that we attached to the edge. Now I have quite a bit left over, but that's okay. It's better to have more than not enough. And now we're just going to tie. I just do a double knot. You can do a bow, however you want. You can leave a little extra so that you can tie things onto it later. You could tie a bookmarking here. You could tie some charms. I can get it around here. All right, so yes, I'm gonna just do a double knot, tie that nice and tight. And then I'm gonna clip a little bit of it off because I don't need all of this. Where'd my scissors go? All right, clip that off. And so that is my first signature right there, sewn to my back plate. Okay, so when then this gets glued down into the book, you're gonna just see this fabric corner, and then you're not gonna see any of the cardboard. All right, and on this side you can see I can do my next signature in the second row and my last signature in the third row. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do now. Here are my 3 signatures with all of my pages all bound to this spine, and you can see there's the stitching on the back, and this is the part that we're going to glue to the inside of our journal cover right here, and it will be glued just like this. All right, so that's what we're gonna do next. All right, so I'm gonna use a combination of glues to glue this spine down to our journal cover. I'm going to use hot glue, E6000, and craft glue. I want to make sure it stays really well. So I'm going to actually start out with some hot glue only because I want to make sure that this little charm holder that we have here doesn't move. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that down first. Then I'm going to take my E6000 and I'm going to put the E6000 all around my journal spine. All right. Now E6000 is the glue that I typically go to for like my crafting projects. It's very strong. Okay, so there's my E6000. Let that kind of sit for a minute. And then I'm gonna take my spine here and I'm gonna take my DIY craft glue and go over the spine with the craft glue. That way I will have a really good hold. Okay, then making sure that everything is upright where it should be. Okay, so this is my front and this is my front. You don't want to glue it in upside down. I'm going to stick that right into my glue. Make sure it's lined up the way it's supposed to be. Just kind of holding pressure on it just to kind of hold it down. Now these fabric flaps we will glue down later, but I want to just make sure that that spine gets glued really good. And let's just check it, make sure our book can open and close. Yeah, we're good. Everything looks good here. Everything looks good there. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is until it dries, I'm just gonna keep it closed. Do these fit? I'm gonna put a couple of clamps on the binder just to keep it closed, keep pressure on that spine and our back plate. And we'll go ahead and let that dry for a couple of hours. So it's been a couple of hours. I'm letting my spine still glue because it's still a little tacky in some spots. But I want to go ahead and glue these fabric flaps down because I want to just get this done. So I'm again using some more Mod Podge. I'm going to start on the edge here and I'm going to work with my Mod Podge just underneath this flap. Now this flap is going to get hidden by our those rose colored papers that we cut out, the inside cover papers. So all of this is going to get hidden. All right, so I just want to make sure that this sticks down nicely. I don't want it to stick to my front page here. So I don't want to close it completely, because if I close it, then it will stick to my front page. So let's just let that. All right, so I'm gonna put something in here, maybe a piece of wax paper, just so that way it doesn't stick to my page. And I'm repeating this on the back side as well. Just getting all of this fabric glued down. I want the construction of this journal to be done so we can start the fun part, and that is doing all the pages on the inside and decorating and doing fun pockets and all kinds of fun things. The construction of the journal is the tedious part. Takes the longest, it's the most time consuming, you're waiting for everything to dry all the time, so I want to get this done. All right, I have label paper, and it's the part that you peel off, so I'm just using that to kind of stick down in between my page and my glued part, so that way it doesn't stick to the page. All right, so we're gonna set this aside and just let that dry. That is done for now. And so make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. Give this video a big thumbs up and stick around for episode 5, which will be some more of the fun stuff having to do with decorating and adding fun features to this journal. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Take care.